Thank you very much, Chair, and thank you to the rest of the speakers. I would like to begin by thanking the European Parliament for having undertaken the work of caring for young women, adolescents, and girls during this pandemic, for defending their rights, particularly at such a difficult time for them. This is a clear sign of the commitment that this institution has to this fight and the defense of the rights of these girls. I would also like to really congratulate the Parliament on its initiatives in the field of guaranteeing women's rights, like the European strategy on the rights of the child, gender equality action, and empowerment of women in external action. So today I am representing an organization that has been working for more than 80 years in the defense of children and the equality of girls. And I think that the most important thing that we can bring to this hearing is the voice of young girls themselves. We're a group that, this is a group that is sometimes included into youth, but because of the gender issues and because of their age, they are very often not included fully into the concerns that people cover when we talk about youth. In such a difficult time, this group requires specific attention. We've carried out research in many of the countries that we work in, and we have drafted 2 reports, one at the beginning of lockdown to see what young women, young girls were experiencing because of COVID-19, and subsequently we published a report in May to see what the consequences were and the experiences that they had in this time of their lives. So here I would like to share our conclusions and also share the request that our organization has for persons like yourselves. There are days when I feel like I'm under pressure. I don't know how to explain it. It's a profound sadness. These are the words of Anna from Nicaragua. She's 16 years old, and they show the current reality. The pandemic has widened the gap between young women and girls and the rest of society. It has had a devastating impact on their mental health, on their safety, on their right to education. As I said before, Plan International published 2 reports, one during the pandemic called Lives at a Halt, and it was published at the end of 2020, and it showed that the pandemic had a severe impact on young women and girls. It was based on the testimonies of more than 17,000 young girls in several countries, including countries of the European Union, Spain and France, and other countries such as Brazil, Egypt, the US, Ecuador, and Ghana. The second report was published in May this year, 2021, and it was a qualitative analysis that monitored the experiences of these girls 6 months later. And the second report completes the statistical analysis with a deeper understanding of the concrete impact that the health crisis had on their lives. Both reports reveal the magnitude of the impact of the crisis on young girls. 83% of those surveyed consider that virus containment measures had a significant impact on their lives. Young girls in Spain and India believed that this was a major change in their lives. Many of those surveyed said that they experienced anxiety and depression. They were concerned about the uncertainty of their future, their professional lives, the lack of support for them to be able to continue doing their schoolwork. And there's a clear correlation between the income levels and anxiety levels reported. In countries with medium and low income, there's a higher degree of anxiety than in medium to high income countries. Education is the part of the girls' lives that was most affected by the crisis. The worst consequence, as reported by these girls, was the fact that they could no longer go to school or to university. For them, apart from losing their education, it also meant that they lost access to necessary services in some cases, like food, like first aid products, and protection mechanisms against different forms of violence. During the pandemic, more than 600,000 girls were taken out of school, and it is possible that when all schools reopen, many of these girls will not be able to go back to their studies. It is estimated that 10 million girls in secondary school will have left school because of the crisis, and according to our first report, 20% of the girls surveyed were forced to temporarily abandon their studies, and many say that they would possibly not be able to return to school. Although distance learning has been possible, it has been difficult to access digital resources. Many have no support from educational institutes, and they have domestic tasks and chores that make it difficult for them to study at home. These are some of the reasons why access to education has been so difficult. Gender-based violence has increased significantly. According to statistics, there might be up to 31 million new cases of gender-based violence, 2 million more cases of female genital mutilation, and an increased number of child brides as well. Because of these consequences of lockdown, we might find a significant number of women who have no access to contraceptives, and this will have led to a higher number of unplanned pregnancies. Access to protective services has been reduced, and although those who were surveyed said that in some cases access to services had improved, particularly in the most underprivileged countries, there are gaps. Many girls who participated in the survey mentioned how difficult it was to access certain services because they were afraid to contract the virus. Many of the girls who participated in the survey said that they were determined to continue with their goals and to pursue their dreams regardless of the pandemic, but they will need support, which will require funds and budgetary allocations from international organizations, institutions, and governments. And from Plan International, this is what we're asking for. We want access to free education, inclusive education. It must be complete and of high quality, and this means investing in methods and tools that will facilitate distance learning and that would take into account the gender element. We need to promote schooling for young mothers and pregnant girls and finance their education and other indirect expenses. Our second request goes towards the definition of and the protection of families against the loss of income when it comes to access to basic food and medication. They need to be covered, but we also need to provide adolescents and young girls with the necessary tools for their economic independence so that they could have dignified work in the future in fields that are environmentally sustainable. We need to look at child employment and put an end to this and try to create better opportunities for these children in the future. We need to contribute to the development of digital skills in young people. And from Plan International, we would like to focus on entrepreneurship and IT fields, and we participate with other countries to develop digital skills in at-risk children for the increasingly competitive labor market. Finally, humanitarian response funds for prolonged crises need to go hand in hand with medium and long-term strategies for socioeconomic stability, given the factors that increase vulnerability. And we must always focus on gender and age in this. Young girls that we talked to, they were clear and they were honest on the consequences of the pandemic, but they also showed their determination to continue to move forward. And I think that the main thing that we can do is to help them to overcome their obstacles, because when it comes down to it, we can see that despite the situation, even if we fall, we must get up on our own, learn, and not let the situation affect us or our dreams. That was those were the words of one of the girls who was interviewed, and she's only